Alright guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, I'm going to go over an email that was sent from a subscriber. This is my guy, I believe he's in his mid-30s, he's from Canada, and he's writing in an interesting type of story, an email here, about how recently he ended a relationship, a short-term relationship with a gal, and was able to use the Paris Olympics as a way to really determine and see some double standards she has that obviously didn't sit with him very well and disqualified her as girlfriend material. And this whole thing he writes in, and it's a very interesting take on the double standards that are out there towards men in the world, things he's experienced. And obviously, and at the end of this story, after getting rid of her over these double standards, definitely addresses the fact and asks the question about my opinion on these double standards, you guys in the community, your opinions and your experience of these double standards, and really what we're willing to tolerate and all that type of thing. Because, all guys are different. And let me make this clear, there are plenty of double standards out there towards guys, let me tell you. And, the pendulum has definitely swung in a way over the years where it's basically the narrative is that men bad, the gals good. And believe me, there are a lot of bad guys out there, yes, but there's also a lot of bad gals out there, But anyhow, a very good one here to go over here with regards to the whole situation. I think a lot of you guys will enjoy this. It says here, hi SSM. So I stumbled upon your content a few months ago and I love it. Many of your subscribers remarked that there was nothing like this channel back when, and I couldn't agree more. Having you lead this conversation between and amongst us men is invaluable. The clarity of thought these conversations have allowed countless men to develop is, I'm convinced, massive. Well, I thank you for your support, bro, and all you guys out there. And I appreciate all you guys that comment every day about things, because it's pretty cool that you guys oftentimes will chit-chat with each other and share ideas and experiences. When I started this channel, I never thought it would go in that direction. It's amazing. Dispelling the darkness and uncertainty that men so often have had in these matters is priceless. Viewing a few dozen of your videos should be mandatory for every young man, and for that matter, many older men as well. They offer guys clarity where once ignorance and blue pill behavior ruled the day. He says, okay, enough flattery. I have a story to share. My story is definitely way less salacious than so many of the stories you cover, but I believe it has a unique perspective on less explosive things that few, perhaps none, of your stories have addressed. It is up to you whether you deem my story worthy of 15 minutes of fame. But if I don't at least share it with you, you won't have the opportunity to decide whether to give it a thumbs up or thumbs down, so here it goes. Well, bro, your story is a little different and addresses an issue that I've talked about, but I haven't really gotten that deep on the double standards things. He says, if you want a title, let's settle on 30-something male seeking a woman who's not desperate hypocrite. And he says, a spoiler, it's harder than you think. To gain an appreciation of the quandary in which I now find myself in, let me share a bit of my history, even if it means bragging just a little bit. I think I'm a pretty decent catch for women. I'm articulate, educated, urban, well-traveled, fit, and good-looking without being a Chad. He says, heck, I'm even 6 feet tall. But if there's one quality that truly defines me in the male-female marketplace, is that I refuse to put up with the double standards that are so painfully endemic in contemporary female culture. Well, guys, I hope after watching me a while that you learn not to put up with a bunch of crap that to you goes against your values, what you seem as deal breakers, that type of thing. And when you work on yourself and become the best you can be, you find yourself intolerant of people in your life that, bring turmoil or drama or anything like that, both women and men. So yeah, good for you, bro, for having some standards and not tolerating crap that bothers you. Let me explain. I'm now 36 years old, and like the rest of us, I recently experienced the Paris Olympics. More on that in a minute. 12 years ago, as a young dude, okay, you were 24 at the time, I recall an experience from an earlier Olympics. And by the way, guys, we're doing some storytelling here, but he has a point. So this is a good example he's going to get into about double standards. At that time, 12 years ago, in the build-up of the games, a major magazine, I think it was Vanity Fair, but I can't be 100% sure, ran a rather interesting, glossy, and professionally executed spread on 6 or 7 of the hottest, sexiest male athletes of that era. It was, I recall, provocative, very even erotic without tipping into being porno. They definitely weren't wearing baggy tracksuits, if you know what I mean. I'm sure there are a lot of hot cover photos, and I'm also sure the edition sold far better than more typical edition. Fine. That's the world in which we men are forced to live. Let me add that I'm Canadian. I was watching the national evening newscast on the publicly funded Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, or CBC, a couple of days prior to the opening ceremonies where they ran a story on the Olympics. For my non-Canadian friends out there, the CBC was and remains a paragon of hyper-woke values masquerading as a media organization, or so it sometimes seems. Well, we do have some of those over here in the US of A, and I'm sure other countries out there have that as well. You pretty much have certain news outlets that are clearly, biased towards one side of the political scale, and other ones that are clearly biased on the other side, and it's obvious. Back to the CBC, says they are virtually unable of running a news story that doesn't have a woke angle that they want to drum into the skulls of their listeners. As it happens, the CBC had won the rights to be the national broadcaster for the games, a huge and financially lucrative success, especially if they could get enough eyeballs glued to the tube. And just how were they going to do that? The news story, as perhaps you can guess, did a bunch of street interviews where the reporter talked to women on the street and flashed the Vanity Fair spread before their eyes, asking them if they were, nudge nudge, planning on watching some of the games. Cue to the drooling and giggling and tee-hee-heeing and the oh-so-naughty comments. So, the CBC was trying to build up anticipation for this, was interviewing women and showing them pictures of the male gymnasts in spicy outfits or whatever, and the gals were given varying degrees of probably locker room talk about the guys. And you can see the direction he's going in this. What would happen if the same network, if they would, was going to guys with magazine spreads of various female athletes looking hot? You can imagine the backlash, right? But if magazines were done of guys, male gymnasts, and let me tell you, these male gymnasts are in fantastic shape. It's pretty amazing. From a trainer's perspective, it is pretty cool. But anyhow, right, you get the point. If they were doing that on a bunch of gals and the female Olympians, look at their bodies, look at that, and guys were making comments, people would lose their minds. But good luck with the media outlet doing that. And here's the crazy part. The same media would chastise guys for oohing and awing girls, but this is the same media showing pictures of dudes. So major double standards both from the women that are oohing and awing the guys in the interviews, as well as the media outlet. Yeah, that's pretty disgusting, but shocker. Because these same women would probably get pissed off if guys were oohing and awing pictures of girls. Not being a complete idiot, I immediately recognize that this same act is a highly dubious journalism. Where the genders reverse would have stirred up a proverbial crap storm from CBC ever-vigilant female viewers, and the heads certainly most certainly would have rolled. Of course they would. I also recognize that there would be no man sufficiently reckless, self-destructive, or moronic at the CBC who would have ever contemplated objectifying female athletes in a news story. Crude, public, and publicly sanctioned behavior is the purview of women and women only. It was true then, and it remains true today. Exactly. Total double standard. Now, do I give a crap if, in that situation, a bunch of male gymnasts, with their permission, of course, had pictures of them and the women were oohing and awing? No, I don't give a crap. What I do give a crap about, and I'm sure a lot of you guys agree with me, is that the same women that are oohing and awing those pictures of those guys and having female locker room talk would get mad at guys if a magazine was showing girls like that. That's what I have a problem with. Or I have a problem with the media outlet that was putting those guys on display and interviewing those girls, but then would be shaming men for doing the same thing, looking at pictures. You get my point. That I have a problem with. But I knew the CBC prided itself on moral purity and that sexual objectification was deemed a no-no. I figured they must have casually assumed that they would get no pushback because they were only objectifying men. Somehow the righteous purity magically evaporated when it was men being objectified. I further reasoned that if they did actually get some pushback, they would immediately collapse, having no leg to stand on. Yeah, but let's be honest, the likelihood is they're not going to get pushback, because either they're just going to hang up the calls or ignore the men, or simply a lot of guys simply wouldn't care about that or figure it's an uphill battle. However, watch this. So I thought, screw it, I'm sick of the endless double standards. I'll be that squeaky wheel. I did some digging and found that there was a CBC office for registered complaints. I wrote the office and explained my concerns about the sexual objectification of male athletes in their newscasts, pondering whether the same behavior would be tolerated if athletes were women. Good for you, man. Now let's see what happens. I think I mused out loud that I was hoping for a reasonable resolution to this matter, and should the CBC fail to furnish me with a satisfactory response, I might perhaps take my concerns to other large Canadian media organizations and see what they thought of the matter. Well, good for you. For probably those same different media organizations would probably be able to tell you to take a hike. No doubt, sensing danger, the office arranged for me to discuss the matter with the editor who had approved the story. No shit, man. The editor was a man. In our conversation, he nervously, keyword nervously, explained to me that the Vanity Fair bit had only been a portion of the story and that he had covered other aspects of the upcoming games in the story. Okay, sure, that was part of it, but you didn't see the same news, the same media outlet, then having pictures of some of the female athletes and asking guys these questions, right? Come on here. And the same outlet you know darn well would be shaming guys if they were googling, whatever the fuck it's called, female athletes. While this is true, I point out that that really wasn't the point. It didn't really matter that the objectification of men had only occupied a portion of the story, and was that really his best defense? I never did receive an adequate explanation, nor an apology, but perhaps because I was still young, pretty mellow dude, once the call ended, I decided to let the whole matter slide. Of course you didn't get a full answer, because the guy this editor, this guy, knew darn well that you were right. But he couldn't give you a real answer. It's like, how many guys have heard politicians be questioned by the media, right? And I don't care what side of the aisle, it doesn't make a difference what your politics are, they all do the same fucking thing. A journalist will ask a question, and they'll just start talking about something completely different. It has nothing to do with the question. They'll just ramble for 5 fucking minutes until the journalist is like, and the journalist doesn't want to seem disrespectful, they'll let it slide. Or maybe they'll ask him again in a different way, and that politician will go on for 5 fucking minutes babbling on about something that has nothing to do with their talk. You know what I mean? And so they just give up. That's what that guy did to you. Modern day me would likely have recontacted the office, advising that I had been wholly unsatisfied with the inadequate response, and that necessarily actions be taken. And by actions, I mean specifically the firing of the editor who greenlighted the story. And that if such actions were not taken, I would contact every Canadian media organization I could think of to discuss what the CBC's true beliefs about sexual objectification were. But at that age, I still lacked the killer instinct, live and learn. Yeah, again, if the situation was reversed, that editor would have been fired. And it would have been a shitstorm. We all know it. And it's ridiculous. But yeah, this is the pendulum has swung in the way that's how things have been for a while and still are now. But hopefully we can do something about that. Anyway, fast forward to the Paris Olympics. Without even looking for it, and to no surprise, my news feed offered me not one, but not two, but 3 different stories about the schlongs of 3 different male athletes in 3 different sporting events: swimming, diving, and, as people are perhaps most familiar with, pole vaulting. Unsurprisingly, no such comparable story emerged about female athletes, underscoring yet again the double standard at play in society. Well, no surprise, 12 years later, same thing. As it happens, I had been dating a woman, a 31-year-old called Shay, for almost 6 months when the Olympics were occurring. Okay, 6 months is some time in there. We hit it off nicely enough, and I think we were slowly, carefully, one step at a time, becoming more deliberate in our dating process. I like the fact, bro, that 6 months of dating her, she still hasn't earned the right to be your girlfriend. You've taken your time, and a good thing for that. No reckless talks of marriage or moving in, but incremental steps from both of us signifying, so I believe, mutual interest in the continue to develop a more serious relationship. Being a zero-tolerance guy, I realized that the time to investigate where Shay stood in these matters of a gender double standard within society was fast approaching. And given my past issues with the Olympics, I saw this as a perfect opportunity to broach the subject. When the pole vaulter story exploded, I recognized I would use the situation to see if Shay was a fair-minded woman or not. Well, there you go. Women test men all the time. All the time. To see our strength, to see where we stand on things, how we handle her, how we handle things. So I don't think it's a crime every once in a while a guy uses an opportunity to test the waters with her to see, level the playing field. I got no problem with this. I waited for a couple days to ensure that the story had maximum opportunity to cross her radar, and then, on a nice walk one Saturday afternoon, I coyly asked her if she was aware of the pole vaulter story. Shay wasn't defensive, but was very curious, asking immediately if I had somehow seen her emails. Yeah, I did see your emails, but tell me more about your emails. How dumb was that? Her just, oh shit, did you see the emails? Really? God almighty, clearly she's not a police officer or a lawyer just volunteering information like that. I assured her I hadn't and asked what that meant. At first she tried shrugging it off, but I could see her initial unguarded response meant something, so I persisted. Soon she admitted that her friend Chrissy had sent her a video clip of the pole vaulting mishap. Aha! I sense men being objectified here. She willingly also admitted that it had been a topic of discussion among some of the girls at work. Sensing a moment of clarity was fast approaching, I asked her to honestly describe to me what exactly had been said. When and what had been said. It seems Chrissy had added a quip along the line of, "Don't you just love it when the Olympics is a package deal?" And the girls at work were no better, cooing and leering at the mishap, though Shay could not recall any particular language deployed. So it sounds like your girl Shay and her friend and gals at work were having some locker room talk, female version of locker room talk, and yet we all know, gentlemen, that when guys are partaking in locker room talk, that's considered a big no-no. That's bad. All sorts of nasty labels go along with that. When any of you guys have sisters or female friends or your girlfriend and her friends have overheard a group of gals, particularly if there's some wine involved, guess what? Girls can have just as much locker room talk as guys do. In fact, I've heard way worse come out of a group of drunk girls, or not even drunk girls, than you get some guys together. Trust me. This is why I tell you guys, you relationship guys, or any of you guys out there, I guarantee you that your girlfriend's, she has at least one friend, guaranteed, that knows how big your package is. Guaranteed. Her friend, guaranteed, one friend at least knows how fast you take care of business, what you're like, what your rhythm is, your favorite position. All, I guarantee it. Anybody says that's bullshit, okay, you're living in a fucking fairy tale. They talk just as much as we do. So, okay, we talk, but if we're going to be pointed as the villains here, we'll turn that finger right back. But we all know darn well it's always the guys that are the villains in the whole locker room talk type of thing. It's bullshit, and we all know it. Anyway, I asked Shay what she thought about all this, and she shrugged off, saying she just thought it was funny and not a big deal. At first, I challenged her, asking whether 2 billion women sexually objectifying a man who simply wanted to compete in the Olympics was not a big deal. She began to bristle, so I quickly let it go. Rather than challenge her in the moment, I chose to bide my time. I quickly concocted a plan that would allow me to see how funny she actually thought S-word objectification of an innocent athlete was to her. So, they were all enjoying what happened to that pole vaulter guy, but if the same thing happened to a gal, and guys were having locker room talk over that, the odds are very high that the gals will be losing their mind over the subject, or losing their mind over the media for covering that particular issue. You guys follow me here. After a few more days, I set about generating my response. I'm not exactly proud of this. Bullshit. Yes, you are. But it is surely no worse than what 2 billion women did regarding the pole vaulter. Besides, my chosen athlete was entirely anonymous and shared with only one person, only rather than 2 billion. Anyway, I dug up some brief video footage from the synchronized swimming competition in which this nameless female athlete, head and torso submerged, executed with toned legs and hips, various splits and other actions a heterosexual male viewer might find enjoyable. I found a way to copy this brief video clip and I sent it to Shay with the subject, "Shay, more funny stuff from the Olympics." After all, funny had been her word, and I knew that playing her own words back to her was my best avenue forward. Okay, here's the test. I knew things were likely over when she called me back after work and advised me that we needed to talk. Oh, the famous phrase, huh? Now, most guys would buckle and be soiling their pants when their pretty girlfriend, because to them that's the end-all be-all of human existence, they finally got a pretty girl, said, "We need to talk." But a guy that values himself has options. We need to talk? Fine, whatever. She sternly advised me that the pole vault episode was a mishap and there is no mishap in the synchro swimming clip. Well, I reminded her that the pole vaulter had already knocked the pole with other parts of his body, and therefore there really wasn't a mishap either. His jump had failed before the mishap, and there was pure objectification, which drove billions of women to watch that viral video. Exactly. But if funny was indeed the measure, I added, I thought it was pretty damn funny to watch a woman with head and torso submerged in a swimming pool execute such a crisp movements with her legs and hips above the water. In fact, I told Shay I thought it was hilarious. So hilarious, I was surprised that 2 billion men hadn't turned this random, unsuspecting female athlete into a viral name, or viral meme. Exactly, but it didn't happen. Unsurprisingly, she didn't get the joke. Shay and I also, unsurprisingly, are no more. I guess women really do find some acts of sexual objectification to be much funnier than others, depending, of course, on who is being objectified. Well, bro, that taught you everything you need to know about her, and I would say a very important deal breaker for you. And you're allowed to have choice, because they're allowed to have choice, and yes, double standards. So, behind all this stupidity, I actually do have a serious question. While I refuse to accept societal double standards which always favor women, I'm generally a fair, equal-minded man. But as my experience with Shay and others before her indicate, when push comes to shove, I literally cannot find a woman willing to treat men fairly. When we get right down to it, there doesn't seem to be women who do not subscribe to in full to this atrocious double standard. In this universe, men are sexualized and demonized even as women celebrate themselves for comparable acts. The rampant cheating and the open marriage hysteria that your channel makes clear so many women pursue is of course repugnant to me. But if you merely expect a woman to treat men as she expects and demands that men treat her and all women is becoming evident, you will likely be single for a very long time. This is a huge problem, and I think your channel should really explore this concern. It's not spectacular like open marriages or serial cheating, but I think there are very few, if any, men who aren't victims in this dreadful, hypocritical status quo. I would love comments from you, SSM, and the many wonderful bros out there. Am I being too strict? Should I accept this perpetual double standard? If anyone else mad as hell at these obscene double standards? The inquisitive mind wants to know. Okay, gents, this is where you all get to chime in, and please do chime in on his questions there. What do you all think about this whole thing with the double standards? Is he being too strict? The whole thing. Well, before you guys jump to the keyboards, I'll chime in. Absolutely, there are double standards out there. Abso-fucking-lutely. That's been going on a long time. And as I've said before a few times over the years, the pendulum has swung in a direction where pretty much you can see this in the media, TV, movies, songs, that essentially men are the bad guys. They're going to be the cheaters and losers and stupid and lazy. And look at how they portray men in the sitcoms and all that. And on the other hand, the women are the exact opposite. And that's completely wrong. And I've had a problem with that ever since. And with double standards, you bet your ass there's double standards. And it's annoying as fuck. Again, back to that whole example with the Olympics 12 years ago, with the magazine spread of those male gymnasts, however they were presented, and the women oohing and awing and Googling and commenting about them. Yeah, if the situation was reversed, and it was a magazine spread of all these pretty Olympic female athletes, and they were showing it to guys in the streets, you know darn well in open arms, the women 12 years ago and today will be losing their minds about the objectification, right? But not if there's a bunch of guys. Yeah, it's bullshit. And the same media that'd be presenting, as he described those pictures of those guys, would be shaming the guys for oohing and awing those pretty girls. Complete bullshit. And I absolutely acknowledge that. As well as with regards to your girl, if that thing is very important to you, that you don't want gals that are like that, then you absolutely have the right to simply end a relationship over that. But, and so yeah, there's plenty of that going on. But the question is, for every guy out there, is you're going to have to determine in your own way what is considered acceptable, not acceptable for you. So if you're a relationship guy like this dude writing in, what amount of that? Because he said, I have not encountered a gal that doesn't have that in some way. But the thing is, I want to caution you guys is, we have to be careful that we don't turn into the exact type of assholes that we make fun of. And who am I talking about? Well, who is the greatest example of the angry as fuck, looking to find negativity in anything and point guys as the villains? None other than the man-hating, pissed-off F-Nazis. And I can joke about the blue hair or the green hair and the covered with tattoos and the ones that look for anything, any excuse to point fingers as guys as the villain. Men that are alive or unborn men that are coming down in the future as being the root of all the problem with existence. There shouldn't be any men and that we're only good for procreation. And even then we don't need men because science, you get the point. We don't want to turn into them. And I'm being dead serious here. So it's important that we have this knowledge. We're aware of what's going on. We point out, but we don't become angry as fuck and nasty like them. I can't stress that. Because who wants to become like that? And I've had a lot of people accuse me of that, you know? I use this channel for lots of reasons. To help out guys on multiple fronts. Become the best they can be. Encourage them to go for what they want to in life, you know? Motivate them, all that type of thing. I share stories here to help guys see where others have gone wrong, so hopefully it doesn't happen to them. I share stories that are entertaining as hell, because we all like good entertainment, let's be honest here. Lots of reasons. But I myself, and I've said this before, I don't hate women. I don't like a-hole women that behave in a lot of these gals in these stories do, but not all are like that. Many are capable of bad things, but I mean they're all going to do it. I know a lot of cool ones, whether in family, people I've known throughout my life. I don't hate them, but I think it's important to share what's going on because we're in a period now where the pendulum has swung so far over, and I'm tired of it, and you are too. We're in an era that guys, and just like 4.5 years ago when I started this channel, are still in the, let's be honest, oftentimes treated as second-class citizens. There's a bunch of horse shit, and we need to demand better. But there is a balance. You know, you don't want to turn into these, again, man-hating, blue-haired F-ness types. Otherwise, we become what we despise. So, with regards to the double standards and everything, yeah, it's out there. You're damn right, you know. And there's the degree, whether, you know, what we're going to point that out, everything. But we don't want to turn into the angriest fuck ones, if you will. So, with regards to you guys, to the dude that wrote this in, it's your business. You know, for you, that was a deal breaker. You didn't want to be in a relationship with a guy like that. Fine. I got no problem with that. You're not being too strict. You have to determine what's best for you. I can't tell you what that is. The bros here that are going to comment, and believe me, the bros are going to comment on this video. They can't determine. You got to determine that. And for all you guys out there, you got to determine what's best for you. Take care of you. But anyhow, yes, there are double standards out there all the time. And women will complain there's double standards they deal with, and it happens. I'm not going to deny that. But right now, and it's been for a while, the pendulum whoosh, over here towards the guys, and it ain't pretty. Now, pendulums tend to go over one way, and they go over the other way, you know, so eventually the pendulum's going to start swinging over. But I do my part here, my small little, I guess if you can call it corner of the internet or whatever, section of the internet, to help guys out, point out these things, provide entertainment, a community, if you will. And I'm so happy you guys tune in every day or most days for these videos and able to enjoy it and help others out. But yeah, there's a problem out there. So again, I'm not denying it at all, and it's bullshit, but we have to determine how best we're going to deal with it without turning into those types, because that's the last thing we want. So bro, great story here. I appreciate you pointing these things out. I think it's very funny you called that editor over that magazine back in the day, or that media outlet. And hell, shit, you should do it again sometime. If you ever saw something happen, really dig, you know. But we gotta There's a point, guys, when it comes to some things, we have to become the squeaky wheel. We have to dig, you know? But again, without turning into those a-holes, the effiness types, there's the angriest fuck ones, and that's a delicate balancing act. But anyhow, good story here, bro. This is why I did your video today, because I read this while I was having lunch today. I'm like, I got to do this one. This is definitely a little different. This is a good one. So I wish you all the best, and down the road, you see an opportunity, definitely be a squeaky wheel. Rattle some cages, because, hey, we know darn well who will do that. All right, guys, that's it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. Definitely chime in about the double standard things and all that. I'd like to hear your perspective on that, whether I agree with it or not, or your own personal experience. And be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. I'll catch you next time.